Maybe you're like me and you think winter really is full of wonder, or maybe you're like, Erica, come on, bring on spring. Either way, you're going to love our special guest today on Spirit 105.3. Erin Leham wrote a book called Rooted in Wonder. It's wonderful. And another book I didn't know about. We'll get to that later. She's also the host of the podcast, Nat Theo. Great for you and your kids to listen to. Erin, Happy New Year, my friend. It's so good to connect with you again.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much.
Hey, I cherish your book, Rooted in Wonder. And just the other day, you were posting on Instagram about the wonders of winter, a subject on which you and I agree, but a lot of people struggle this time of year here in the PNW appreciating winter. And I'm wondering if maybe you could spark some joy this morning.
Oh, I hope so. Well, to be honest, Erica, I did not always find winter so wonderful.
Oh, okay. What changed you?
I was definitely, well, I grew up in the Midwest, and so I also am very used to long, cold winters. And then my family, we've been in Colorado 10 years now, and a few years ago, I just decided, you know what? No more. I need to learn to enjoy winter. And so one of the first things I did was get the right gear. And so I'm a firm believer that a decent pair of snow pants can change your life, because it did mine. And so even used gear, you know, if you're in a community and just asking people, hey, do you have this pair of boots? Do you have this gear that I can borrow or use? And so once we did that, I was able to really start discovering the wonders of winter. And so one of the things I shared on Instagram the other day is even going out and finding like different ice formations. You know, we have icicles and those are beautiful, but then have you ever seen an ice flower? Do you know what that is?
I've only seen them on the interwebs.
Oh my goodness, these are amazing. They're these incredible formations that happen usually like late fall or early winter when it's still, the ground is a little bit warm, so plants can still slurp up moisture from the ground. And then the cold air freezes the water in the plant stem and pushes it upward, and it splits the plant stem. And then the frozen water is like these curly cues of ice, almost like a frost ribbon coming out of these plants. So those are really fun to look for. But one thing we also love doing, my husband and my kids and me, is after a fresh snow, go look for animal tracks. Because that's when you're going to see them, especially like a first snow in the morning after the animals have been busy out foraging, finding what they can in the early morning. I have loved finding like coyote and fox tracks in our neighborhood. And we live in Colorado, so we've even found like mountain lion tracks with the little tail swoop. And you know it's a lion because it has that long tail. But, you know, if that's not your thing, that's okay. Finding mice tracks and rabbit tracks and learning to identify a couple and just asking your kids, like, where do you think that animal was going? What do you think they were doing this morning?
I love that. Erin, for somebody who is not a nature girl or a nature boy, what is something you can do like this winter to get outside and maybe try to change? Because I just feel like when I go outside, I feel better.
Oh, completely. I completely agree. And sometimes you don't even know it until you try it. And then you're like, what have I been missing all these years? But that's okay. That's okay. Start today. One that I love that is easy entry level is going bird watching in the winter. And for a long time, you know, sometimes, I don't know, the idea around it is like, that's an old person's thing. No, like, let's bring back bird watching for families. And winter is the best time to do it because, and this is going to sound funny, but there's less birds to find because a lot of them have migrated away. But that means it's easier to learn to identify them.
Wow.
And so I've done this with my kids, and a couple of winters ago, I spent an entire January where I would go out every morning, and I was determined to learn what birds were in our neighborhood. And by the end of that month, I had learned to identify over 20 of them who actually stay during the winter. And a really fun way to do this is to use a free app called Merlin Bird ID. And one thing you can do on that is you can identify by just saying like, hey, I saw a brown bird. It was in a tree. It was about the size of a robin. And they'll show you options for your area.
Yes.
But then you can also hit record, and it will record the bird songs or calls around you and show you what bird is singing or making sound. And then it shows it on the screen so you know what you're looking for. So that's a great way. If listeners want to get involved in that, On our podcast, Nat Theo, Nature Lessons Rooted in the Bible, we actually have a lot of bird episodes on
Yes.
teaching kids why and how do birds migrate? How do they sing? And bringing it all back to a biblical worldview. So that would be a great one this winter, is just deep dive into learning about God's many feathered creations.
Oh, and there's nothing like seeing a cardinal on a bare branch. I mean, there's something that it does something to my heart knowing, wow, God made that beautiful bird just to put something in the drab part of winter.
Absolutely. Yes.
And Eryn, every time I think about birds, I think they're one of my favorites of God's creatures. Definitely not the mountain lion. That is not on my list. I think about how you never see a bird worrying or freaking out. They trust God. So we can learn so much from creation too.
Oh, absolutely. I have learned so many lessons just by watching the birds. And I love that you bring that up, Erica, because it was our first podcast episode that we did almost a few years ago now, was what Jesus's favorite bird might have been.
I'm going to go with sparrow, but I can't wait to hear your reasoning behind it.
So, like in the scriptures, when Jesus is talking to the crowd and he says, don't worry, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but don't worry about these things because, look, your Father cares for the birds. How much more does he care for you?
Yeah.
And then in another place in the Gospels, he specifically mentions sparrows. Mm-hmm. And what I found was that the oldest fossil found of a house sparrow was just outside of Bethlehem. And so it's very likely that when Jesus was growing up on earth, that he was hearing these same birds, these house sparrows that are jumping around in my yard right now.
Wow.
And the incredible thing, Erica, is that, you think about birds and it might not seem like it takes much to feed them. Like you throw out some seed or they find some insects or some berries. But for those house sparrows, to raise their little nest of chicks, it takes thousands of insects over the course of a couple of weeks. Wow. Thousands.
Wow.
The mama and dad, we've watched this in our yard. We have a little sparrow condominium where several sparrow pairs raise their babies every year.
Yes.
And you watch them all day long. They're taking turns, mama and daddy sparrow, going and finding insects, bringing them back. So one watches the nest, the other goes on a hunting trip, and they switch all day long. So it's no easy or small task to feed a sparrow. And yet God is saying, how much more do I care for you? Yeah. I planned for those sparrows from the beginning of creation. And in the same way, even more so, I have planned to provide for you in every detail.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I had a moment with a little sparrow at Cannon Beach last summer. I was eating ice cream out of a waffle cone, and this sparrow just kept coming up to me as if it wanted to be my friend. And then I realized, I think that sparrow might be hungry. So I broke off the tiniest little piece of waffle cone. And just watching that little bird feel so happy, I felt my soul slow down. And I believe that's one of the greatest gifts that God gives us in his creation and nature, a chance for the soul to slow down. Am I right?
Oh, I completely agree. That every time I feel like I'm just going too fast or I've stepped out of God's pace, that is what he brings me back to. Hey, go on a walk outside. Maybe it's 5 minutes. Go on a walk and come back into God's pace.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Okay, Eryn, I mentioned earlier, I didn't realize you wrote another book, 936 Pennies, Discovering the Joy of Intentional Parenting. So will you share the story behind this book?
Yeah, absolutely. That was my first book. And It's all about the 936 weeks that we have with our children between birth and 18. And I wrote that book after we were given a jar of 936 pennies for our second son's child dedication. And our pastor challenged us to remove a penny every week to remind ourselves that, time is limited. We need to use it wisely, as the scriptures say in Psalm 90:12. And so we actually move the penny over every week so that we can see a second jar growing and be reminded that this is an investment. We are building into our children's eternities and to take that seriously and prayerfully. So the whole book is about how do we spend the time we have with our kids well and in the way that God intends us to.
Wow. I know the next gift I'm giving to my friend who becomes pregnant is going to be a jar of 936 pennies and then an empty jar too. I love that you did that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a different way of thinking about time so that, as parents, we always feel that pressure of time goes too fast. We want to slow it down. well, let's actually work in tandem with God's gift of time and see it as an opportunity.
Oh, Eryn, that'll be our next convo. Erin Lynum, thank you so much for being here. You are such a blessing and a joy.
Thank you, Erica. I always love talking about winter wonders and birds. This has been so fun.
And Pennies, God bless you, dear.
You also.